I can still hear the crystal glasses clinking at my sister Madison's promotion party. The sound echoes in my memory like a bitter reminder of that night, the night that changed everything. The elite of Boston's financial world had gathered in the grand ballroom of the Ritz-Carlton, all to celebrate Madison Blake, the youngest VP in Sterling Financial's history. I stood in the corner, wearing a dress I'd designed myself, watching my parents beam with pride as Madison commanded the room. At 32, she was their crowning achievement. Harvard Business School graduate, rising star in finance, and now Vice President of Mergers and Acquisitions. Eleanor. My mother's voice cut through my thoughts as she appeared beside me, champagne flute in hand. At least fix your hair. Everyone here is a potential investor. I resisted the urge to touch the dark curls I'd carefully styled. My hair is fine, Mom. Fine isn't good enough in this world, she sighed, smoothing her own perfectly coiffed silver hair. Look at your sister. She understands presentation, networking. At least one daughter made it. The words stung, even though I'd heard variations of them for years. Ever since I'd turned down a position at a prestigious consulting firm to start my own business, I'd been the family disappointment. Never mind that my online fashion platform was growing steadily. In their world, if you couldn't see the corner office, success didn't exist. Ellie? Madison's voice carried across the room as she approached, her Louboutins clicking against the marble floor. Come meet Richard Sterling. He's interested in hearing about your little website. I forced a smile as she dragged me toward a distinguished-looking man in his 60s. Richard Sterling owned half of Boston's financial district, including the building where Madison now had her corner office. So, he said, peering at me over his glasses, Madison tells me you run some sort of fashion blog? Actually, I started. Stitch and Style is a technology platform that connects independent designers with... Oh, how fun, he interrupted, already looking past me for someone more important. A hobby business. Well, keep at it. Not everyone can be as driven as your sister. Madison's laugh tinkled like the crystal glasses. Ellie likes to do her own thing. But enough about that. Did you hear about the Maxwell merger? I excused myself and headed for the bar, needing something stronger than champagne. The bartender had just handed me a gin and tonic when I overheard two men in suits talking nearby. The numbers on the Maxwell deal seemed too good to be true, one muttered. Everything about Sterling's Golden Girl seems too good to be true, the other replied. But who's going to question success? I filed the conversation away, along with the dozens of other whispers I'd been collecting over the past year. Something about Madison's meteoric rise didn't add up, but nobody wanted to look too closely at a winning streak. My phone buzzed. A notification from my company's analytics dashboard. Another spike in user engagement. While Madison worked in her glass tower moving imaginary millions around, I was building something real. Not that my family would ever understand that. Still checking your Instagram likes. Madison appeared beside me, her smile sharp. You should really think about getting a real job, Ellie. I could put in a word at Sterling. I have a real job, I replied evenly. In fact, we just closed our series of funding round. Her perfectly shaped eyebrows rose slightly. Oh, someone actually invested in your little project. Several someones. We raised $12 million. For a moment, her mask slipped. Something dark flashed across her face before the smile returned. How sweet. Well, don't let it go to your head. The tech bubble always bursts eventually. She sauntered away to rejoin her admirers, but not before I caught a glimpse of something else in her expression. Fear. It was gone so quickly, I might have imagined it, but it made me think of all those whispers, all those numbers that seemed too good to be true. Later that night, in my downtown loft that doubled as Stitch and Styles' office, I opened my laptop and began digging. Madison had always been driven, but lately, her success had taken on a frantic edge. The Maxwell merger she'd orchestrated had made headlines for its unprecedented returns. Every deal she touched turned to gold, almost as if. A knock at my door interrupted my thoughts. When I opened it, I found an envelope on the floor. No sender, no markings. Inside was a USB drive and a note. Your sister isn't as golden as she seems. If you want the truth, look at the attached files. I stared at the drive for a long time before plugging it in. Years of working in tech had taught me about security risks, but something told me this was important. As files filled my screen, spreadsheets, emails, bank statements, my hands began to shake. The perfect daughter, the family success story, was nothing but a carefully constructed lie, and I was holding proof that would bring it all crashing down. My phone rang, making me jump. It was Madison. "I hope you're not planning to do anything stupid with the information you just received," she said without preamble. My blood ran cold. "How did you?" "I have eyes everywhere, little sister. Remember that. Now, delete those files and forget about them. Focus on your cute little fashion website and stay out of my business." She hung up before I could respond. I sat in the darkness of my loft, staring at my screen where evidence of her fraud glowed accusingly. She thought she could intimidate me, just like she always had. She thought I was still the quiet sister who played it safe. But she had no idea what I'd been building in the shadows while she basked in her false spotlight. She had no idea that I'd been preparing for this moment, gathering my own resources, building my own empire. I picked up my phone and dialed a number I'd been saving for a special occasion. "Ms. Jang, this is Eleanor Blake. I believe we need to talk about Sterling Financial and my sister." Ms. Dang, one of the most ruthless corporate raiders in the business, had been following my company's progress with interest. She'd offered to back me in any venture I chose. I'd been waiting for the right opportunity. "I was wondering when you'd call," she said. "I assume you've seen the evidence?" "Yes, and I know exactly what to do with it." As I hung up, I looked at the photo on my desk, our family at Madison's college graduation, everyone beaming at her while I stood in the background. That dynamic was about to change, but not in the way anyone expected. Madison thought she was the only one who knew how to play the game. She was wrong. While she'd been building her house of cards, I'd been laying a foundation of steel and concrete, and when her empire of lies crumbled, I would be there to pick up the pieces. For pennies on the dollar. The morning after receiving the USB drive, I walked into my company's real office. Not the loft where I'd started, but the entire 10th floor of a downtown high-rise. 50 employees looked up from their desks as I passed, each one a reminder of what I'd built while my family was busy dismissing me. "Morning, Ms. Blake." My assistant Thomas handed me a coffee. "Ms. Jang called twice already. And there's something else. Sterling Financial stock dropped 15% in pre-market trading." I paused mid-sip. "Any news about why?" "Rumors about irregularities in their recent merger deals. Nothing concrete yet, but the market's nervous." I nodded, hiding my smile. The wheels were already in motion. My office overlooked the financial district, with a perfect view of Sterling Financial's gleaming headquarters where Madison held court. But while her view came from borrowed power, mine was built on something real. Stitch and Style had revolutionized the fashion industry, connecting independent designers directly with manufacturers and consumers. We weren't just a platform. We were changing how the industry worked. Thomas, I called out, set up a meeting with our legal team and get me everything you can find about Sterling Financial's holdings, especially any distressed assets they might need to offload quickly. He raised an eyebrow but didn't question me. That's why I had hired him. He understood discretion. My phone buzzed with a text from Mom. Have you seen the news about Sterling? Your sister needs family support right now, not whatever scheme you're plotting. I deleted it without responding. Of course, she assumed I was plotting something. In her mind, I was always the jealous sister, never the successful one. The evidence on the USB drive had revealed the ugly truth behind Madison's perfect facade. She'd been cooking the books for years, inflating profits, hiding losses, and paying off auditors. The Maxwell merger that had made her famous, built on fraudulent valuations and insider trading. But I wasn't interested in exposing her. Not yet. I had bigger plans. Ms. Blake, Thomas appeared in my doorway. Your sister is here. Madison stormed in, her designer suit slightly wrinkled, a detail that spoke volumes about her state of mind. What did you do? She hissed, throwing a financial report on my desk. Our stock is in free fall. I leaned back in my chair, studying her. The perfect mask was cracking. I haven't done anything, Madison, but it seems the market is finally asking questions about those amazing returns of yours. Don't play innocent. Someone's been feeding information to our shareholders. Trading patterns show massive shorts being placed last week, right after you got that USB drive. I smiled. Sounds like you have a leak. Maybe you should focus on that instead of accusing your unsuccessful sister. Listen carefully. She leaned across my desk, her voice low and dangerous. If you try to destroy what I've built, I'll make sure everyone knows about your own creative accounting. My laugh caught her off guard. My accounting? Please, go ahead. Audit every penny. Unlike you, I actually built something real. Real, she scoffed. You sell dresses on the internet. No, I created a technology that's revolutionizing an entire industry. But you'd know that if you or our parents ever bothered to understand what I do. She straightened up, adjusting her jacket. Just stay out of my way, Ellie. You're playing a game you don't understand. After she left, I opened my laptop and sent an email to Ms. Jang. Time for phase 2. The next week was chaos. Anonymous tips to financial regulators triggered a formal investigation into Sterling Financial. Madison appeared on CNBC, defending their practices, but the damage was done. Their stock dropped another 30%. I watched it all from my office, remembering every dismissive comment, every family dinner where my achievements were ignored in favor of Madison's latest triumph. Ms. Blake, Thomas interrupted my thoughts. The board of Sterling Financial just called an emergency meeting, and your mother's online one. I picked up the phone, already knowing what I'd hear. What have you done? Mom's voice was shrill. Your sister's career is being destroyed, and you're just sitting there watching. Actually, I replied calmly, I'm not just watching, I'm buying. What? Sterling stock. My company has been acquiring shares all week. At these prices, it's quite a bargain. Silence. Then, you planned this. You're trying to take over Sterling Financial. No, Mom. Madison destroyed Sterling Financial. I'm just here to pick up the pieces. I hung up and turned to Thomas. Get me Ms. Jang. It's time to make our move. The plan was elegant in its simplicity. While Madison had been building her house of cards, I had been quietly amassing resources. Stitch and Style's success had given me significant capital, and Ms. Zhang's backing provided the rest. Now, with Sterling's stock in free fall, we could acquire controlling interest for a fraction of its real value. But first, the final blow had to fall. I opened the USB drive and began forwarding its contents to federal regulators. Within hours, the story broke across all major news networks. Sterling Financial BPACUSED of massive FRAD. Made on BLAK. The fall of A Financial Protoagui. SECLAUNCESCRMINL NVESTIG into Steurline DELINGs. My phone exploded with messages from family members. I ignored them all except one. From my father. "You're no longer my daughter." I stared at those words for a long time before replying. "I never was. Madison was your only daughter. I was just the disappointment who built an empire while you weren't watching." That night, as Sterling Financial's board met to deal with the crisis, I sat in my office with Ms. Zhang, watching the city lights flicker below. "They'll have to sell," she said, swirling her whiskey. "The question is, who will they sell to?" I smiled. "They'll sell to Phoenix Acquisitions." "Your shell company," she nodded approvingly. "They won't know it's you until it's too late." Exactly. Madison might understand fraud, but she never understood real business. She never understood me. Tomorrow, I would begin the process of acquiring the company where my sister had built her fraudulent empire. The company that had made her the family's golden child while I was dismissed as a failure. But tonight, I allowed myself a moment to savor the irony. The little fashion website they'd mocked had given me the power to buy their precious Sterling Financial for pennies on the dollar. And this was just the beginning. The morning of the Sterling Financial board meeting dawned bright and cold. I dressed carefully in a suit I designed myself. Midnight blue, impeccably tailored. Today, I would step out of the shadows and into my full power. The lobby of Sterling Financial was chaos. Reporters crowded the entrance, cameras flashing. Security guards struggled to maintain order as protesters waved signs demanding justice for defrauded investors. I walked through it all, Thomas at my side carrying the acquisition paperwork. The same security guard who had once stopped me, claiming I didn't look like I belonged here, now held the door open with a respectful nod. The boardroom fell silent as I entered. Madison sat at the far end. Her perfect facade finally cracked. Dark circles shadowed her eyes. Her designer outfit slightly askew. Our parents flanked her like protective shields, but even they couldn't protect her now. Richard Sterling himself sat at the head of the table, looking every bit as old as his 70 years. The last week had aged him considerably. "What is she doing here?" Mom demanded, standing up. "This is a private board meeting." I took a seat directly opposite Madison. "I'm here representing Phoenix Acquisitions. We own 30% of Sterling Financial's shares, which entitles us to a seat at this table." "Phoenix Acquisitions?" Madison's voice cracked. "That's impossible. They're the ones who've been buying up our stock." I smiled, sliding a document across the table. "Not just buying. As of this morning, we've made an offer to acquire controlling interest in Sterling Financial. The paperwork is all there." The room erupted in chaos. Board members frantically flipped through the documents while Madison stared at me, realization dawning in her eyes. "You," she whispered. "You're Phoenix." "Surprise, sister dear." Richard Sterling cleared his throat. "The offer appears legitimate. Given our current situation, the board must consider it. You can't be serious." Madison slammed her hand on the table. "She orchestrated this whole thing. She's trying to steal my company." "Your company?" I laughed softly. "You mean the company you nearly destroyed with your fraud? The company whose stock is worth less than half what it was 2 weeks ago? That company?" Our father stood up, his face red with anger. "How dare you come in here like this? After what you've done to your sister?" "What I've done?" I met his gaze steadily. "I built a legitimate billion-dollar company while you were all fawning over Madison's house of cards. I created real value while she created fake profits. The only thing I'm guilty of is seeing an opportunity when it presented itself." "The board needs to discuss this privately," Richard Sterling announced. "Ms. Blake, both Ms. Blakes, please wait outside." In the hallway, Madison grabbed my arm. "Why? Why did you do this to me?" "To you?" I pulled free from her grip. "This isn't about you, Madison. It never was. This is about building something real, something lasting, something you never understood. I built something real. I was successful. You built a pyramid scheme in a designer suit." I corrected her. "And now, it's crumbling, just like every house of cards eventually does." Our mother approached, her heels clicking angrily on the marble floor. "Your father and I will never forgive you for this betrayal." I smiled sadly. "Like you never forgave me for choosing my own path, for building something you couldn't understand or control. I stopped needing your forgiveness a long time ago." The boardroom doors opened. Richard Sterling emerged, looking grave. "The board has voted to accept Phoenix Acquisition's offer," he announced. "Given the circumstances, we feel it's in the best interest of our shareholders." Madison crumpled into a nearby chair, her perfect world finally shattered completely. I turned to Thomas. "Please escort the former VP to clear out her office and call security. I want all her files preserved for the federal investigation." "You can't do this," Madison shrieked as security approached. "This is my company." "Not anymore," I replied calmly. "Oh, and Madison? The corner office has a lovely view. I think I'll keep it." Over the next few hours, I watched from my new office as Madison was escorted from the building, carrying a box of personal items. Our parents left shortly after, not even glancing up at my window. My phone buzzed. A text from Ms. Zhang. "Beautifully executed. Your sister never saw it coming." I smiled, remembering all those family dinners where they dismissed my little website. Now Stitch in Style was worth billions, and I'd just acquired one of Boston's oldest financial institutions. The next morning, the headlines told the story. "Tech H-E-N-T-R-E in your EQIRES STERLING Finance Eleanor BLAK from Fayion STRTUP to Financial POWERATOUSE Sterling SVANDAL 1 STER falls as annual data rises." A week later, I received an invitation to a family dinner. I almost laughed at their predictability. Now that I'd proven my success, they wanted to reconcile. I sent back a simple response. "Too busy running 2 companies. Maybe next time." Madison eventually pleaded guilty to multiple counts of securities fraud. She served 5 years in a minimum security prison. Our parents sold their house to pay legal bills and moved to Florida. where they presumably still tell everyone about their successful daughter. Only now they mean me, though they never mention how I achieved that success. As for me, I merged Sterling's legitimate assets with my tech empire, creating something entirely new. The same analysts who once dismissed me as a fashion blogger now write lengthy profiles about my business genius. But the real victory wasn't in the acquisition or the headlines. It was in proving that success doesn't always wear a designer suit or work in a corner office. Sometimes it builds quietly, steadily, until it's strong enough to reshape the world. Last week, I received a letter from Madison, newly released from prison. I understand now, she wrote. You aren't just building a company. You are building revenge. I didn't bother responding. She still didn't get it. This was never about revenge. It was about creation versus destruction, substance versus appearance, truth versus lies. In my new office, high above Boston's financial district, I keep a photo from Madison's promotion party, the night she was celebrated while I stood in the corner, supposedly jealous of her success. I keep it to remind myself that true power doesn't need to announce itself. It builds in silence, grows in shadow, until it's ready to step into the light. Sometimes I think about that night, about Mom's words. At least one daughter made it. She was right, just not in the way she thought.
The comparison started before I could walk. Derek was born first. 3 years older. 3 years of being the center of attention before I arrived and, according to family legend, ruined everything. Derek was such an easy baby, Mom would say at every family gathering. Then we had Jason and forgot what sleep was. Derek was athletic. Captain of every team. I preferred books and building things with my hands. Derek was charming, social, the life of every party. I was quiet, observant, more comfortable with small groups. By the time I was 10, the family narrative was set. Derek was destined for greatness. We'd see. Derek went to Duke on a partial athletic scholarship. Played lacrosse. Joined the best fraternity. Graduated with a finance degree and immediate job offers from 3 major firms. Chose the one in Manhattan. Started at $95,000 plus bonus. I went to a state school 2 hours from home. Studied hospitality management. A choice that made Dad wince. You're going to school to learn about hotels? It's a respected program. Cornell has one too. But you're not going to Cornell. Well, I wasn't going to Cornell. I was going to a state university with a practical program that would teach me the business I was obsessed with understanding. I'd been fascinated by hotels since I was 16. Not staying in them, we couldn't afford luxury travel, but understanding how they worked. The operations, the guest experience, the revenue management, the way a well-run property felt like a machine and an art form simultaneously. I worked through college. Front desk clerk at a Hampton Inn. Learned guest services. Then night audit. Then breakfast attendant when they needed coverage. I took every shift I could, learning every role. Derek came home for Christmas my sophomore year driving a new Audi. Talked about his Manhattan apartment, his expense account, his networking dinners at restaurants I'd only seen on TV. Jason's working at a Hampton Inn, he told his college friends, laughing. Living the dream. I was living my version of a dream, actually. Learning everything I could. But nobody asked about that. After graduation I stayed in hospitality. Got hired as an assistant manager at a mid-tier hotel in Charlotte. Salary, $38,000. Worked 60-hour weeks. Learned operations management, revenue optimization, staff training, crisis management. Everything that happened in a hotel, I wanted to understand it. Derek got engaged to Courtney, a corporate lawyer he'd met at a company mixer. Her family had money. Old money, the kind that came with a family crest and stories about ancestors on the Mayflower. The engagement party was at a country club. Open bar, past hors d'oeuvres, a violinist. I drove down from Charlotte wearing my only suit, which was slightly too big because I'd lost weight from work stress. Jason. Derek grabbed me in a hug that felt performative. Everyone, this is my little brother. He works at a hotel. I'm an assistant manager at. He's in the hospitality industry, Derek told his friends like he was translating for them. Courtney's father Richard shook my hand. Hotels. Interesting. Derek tells us you work the front desk. I'm in management, but I did start at the front desk. Good to work your way up. Character building. He said it kindly, but I could see him calculating my net worth and finding it wanting. Over the next 3 years I moved up. Assistant manager to senior manager. Moved from Charlotte to a better property in Atlanta. Salary climbed to $67,000. I was learning high-end operations now. Luxury hospitality. The 4-star and 5-star world where details mattered and service was an art form. I was also saving everything. Lived in a studio apartment. Drove a 10-year-old Honda. Wore the same rotation of work clothes. Every extra dollar went into savings and, increasingly, into investment accounts. Because I had a plan. Derek made senior analyst, then associate, then VP. His salary climbed into the multiple 6 figures. He and Courtney bought a house in Westchester. 3 bedrooms, professionally decorated, the kind of place featured in home tours. I bought my first property at 29. A struggling boutique hotel in Asheville that was 3 months from foreclosure. Used every dollar I'd saved, $180,000, plus a business loan that terrified me. Spent a year turning it around. Fixed operations, retrained staff, renovated key areas, rebuilt the reputation. Sold it 2 years later for a 280% profit. Nobody in my family knew. They thought I was still working at hotels. I was 32 when I bought my second property. Then a third. Small luxury hotels, bed and breakfasts, boutique properties that were underperforming but had potential. I had a system now. Identify properties with good bones and bad management. Acquire them. Fix operations. Renovate strategically. Build the brand. Either keep them profitable or sell at significant profit. By 35, I owned 7 properties across 4 states. My management company had 43 employees. My net worth was approximately $23 million. My family thought I was a hotel manager making maybe $70,000 a year. I didn't correct them. There was something liberating about their underestimation. No one asked for money. No one had expectations. I could build my business empire while they focused on Derek's achievements. Then Derek announced the wedding. Big wedding. Destination-ish. A luxury resort in Virginia wine country. 200 guests. Weekend event. The wedding of the century, according to Mom's weekly texts. The venue was the Belmont Estate Resort. I received the invitation 4 months in advance. Heavy cardstock hand calligraphy, probably cost $40 per invitation. The Belmont Estate Resort. I owned the Belmont Estate Resort. I'd acquired it 18 months earlier for $8.4 million. A stunning historic property that had been criminally mismanaged. Spent $3.2 million renovating. It was now the highest-rated luxury resort in Virginia wine country. Booked at 89% capacity year-round. Average room rate, $1,850 per night. The wedding coordinator working with Courtney and Derek had no idea I was the owner. My properties operated under a management company name, Riverside Hospitality Group. I kept an extremely low profile. Only the general managers and my executive team knew what I looked like. I RSVP'd yes to the wedding. 3 weeks before the event, Mom called. Jason, we need to discuss the hotel situation. What situation? Well, Derek reserved a room block at the Belmont Estate for family. But the rooms are very expensive. $2,000 per night for the wedding weekend. Okay. Jason, that's $6,000 for 3 nights. Plus they have mandatory resort fees, dining minimums, all these extras. It'll be close to $9,000 total. I can handle it, Mom. She laughed, not unkindly but like I'd said something naive. Honey, be realistic. That's more than you probably make in a month. We found a nice budget motel about 8 miles away. The Countryside Inn. $110 a night. Much more appropriate. More appropriate for what? For your budget. We understand, sweetie. Not everyone can afford luxury. I never said I couldn't afford it. You don't have to pretend with us. We know hotel managers don't make that much. There's no shame in being practical. I sat in my office, the top floor of a renovated textile mill in Charleston that served as my company headquarters, and looked at my computer screen showing real-time occupancy rates across my 7 properties. Sure, Mom. The Countryside Inn sounds fine. Oh good. I'm so glad you're being sensible about this. Derek and Courtney will be so relieved. They felt terrible about the cost, but they really wanted the Belmont estate. They wanted the resort I owned. Perfect. 2 weeks before the wedding, Derek called. Hey Jason. Mom told me about the motel situation. It's fine. Look, I'm not trying to be a dick, but I wanted to give you a heads up. The Belmont estate is really upscale. Like really upscale. The dress code for dinner is business casual minimum. The spa requires reservations weeks in advance. Everything is expensive. I'll keep that in mind. I just don't want you to feel out of place. Maybe stick to the motel restaurant for meals? The Belmont Estates restaurant is like $80 per entree minimum. Noted. And obviously you're invited to all the wedding events. But if some of the pre-parties are too pricey, no one will judge you for skipping. Appreciate the consideration, Derek. After I hung up, I texted my general manager at the Belmont Estate. Thomas, I'll be attending the Morrison Bennett wedding next weekend. Maintain confidentiality about ownership. I'll check in at the Countryside Inn under my name. Monitor the wedding party for any issues. His response came immediately. Understood, Mr. Rivera. Should I reserve your usual owner's suite just in case? Yes, but keep it off the books. I'll decide day of whether to use it. The wedding weekend arrived. I drove to Virginia in my normal car, a 3-year-old Lexus ES350. Nice but not flashy. Loaded my modest suitcase into the trunk and made the 4-hour drive. I passed the Belmont estate first. The long tree-lined driveway, the historic mansion gleaming white in the afternoon sun, the professionally maintained grounds, the discreet parking area for luxury vehicles. I'd overseen every detail of the renovation personally. It was perfect. Kept driving to the Countryside Inn. It was exactly what you'd expect for $110 a night. Aging strip motel off the highway. Parking lot with weeds growing through cracks. A flickering neon sign. The room smelled like artificial air freshener trying to mask decades of cigarette smoke. The Wi-Fi barely worked. The bed was lumpy. The AC rattled. I unpacked my wedding clothes, hung them in the questionable closet, and sat on the worn bedspread checking my phone. 17 emails from various property managers. Revenue reports showing we were up 31% year-over-year. 2 acquisition opportunities requiring review. An interview request from a hospitality industry magazine. I handled it all from the countryside and while my family stayed at the property I owned. The welcome dinner was Friday evening at the Belmont Estate. I arrived at 6:45 p.m., parking my Lexus among the Mercedes, BMWs and Teslas filling the lot. The estate looked perfect. My facilities team had done exceptional work. The gardens were immaculate. The outdoor lighting created a magical ambience. Everything precisely as I'd approved in the design plans. I walked into the main reception hall. Crystal chandeliers. Original to the 1920s building, restored at significant cost. The parquet floors refinished to gleaming perfection. Fresh flowers everywhere, arrangements that probably cost $600 each. Derek and Courtney held court near the bar. Derek wore a custom suit that probably cost $3,000. Courtney's cocktail dress was designer, her jewelry substantial. I wore a J. Crew suit I'd owned for 4 years. Clean, appropriate, unremarkable. Jason. Derek spotted me. You made it. I accepted his hug. Congratulations. Isn't this place incredible? Worth every penny. The rooms are insane. Our suite has a fireplace, a soaking tub, a private balcony. $2,000 a night but totally worth it. It's beautiful. How's the Countryside Inn? He said it sympathetically, like asking about a terminal diagnosis. It's fine. Well, hey, at least you're here. That's what matters. Come get a drink, open bar tonight. One of the perks of paying $85,000 for the wedding package. I knew the actual package cost $127,000, but I didn't correct him. The bar served top-shelf everything. I ordered a bourbon, a $40 pour that Derek didn't pay for since it was included in his package. The family gathered. Mom and dad, aunts and uncles, cousins I hadn't seen in years. Everyone dressed in expensive clothes, talking about their expensive lives, celebrating this expensive wedding. I found a corner and observed. Jason. Courtney's father, Richard, approached with a bourbon of his own. Good to see you. How's the hotel business? It's going well. Still managing that place in. Where was it? Atlanta. I'd left Atlanta 6 years ago, but still in hospitality, yes. Good. Honest work. Not everyone needs to be a VP like Derek. He clapped me on the shoulder. The world needs people to run the hotels, not just stay in them. He laughed at his own observation and moved on to talk to someone more interesting. Dinner was served. A 5-course meal I'd personally approved when reviewing the Belmont Estates catering contracts. Every dish executed perfectly. My culinary team was exceptional. I sat at table 14, near the back, between Derek's college roommate's girlfriend and Courtney's second cousin twice removed. The important people, Derek's business colleagues, Courtney's family, the wedding party, sat up front. At table 1, Derek stood to give a toast. Talked about his journey, meeting Courtney, building his career, buying their house, living the dream. Everyone applauded. No one mentioned me. I hadn't expected them to. After dinner, the party moved to the terrace. More drinks, desserts, mingling. I stood by the balustrade overlooking the gardens, thinking about the landscape design decisions I'd made during renovation. The lighting levels, the plant selections, the sightlines. Jason. Mom appeared slightly tipsy. Are you having fun? It's lovely. Isn't this place amazing? Can you imagine staying somewhere like this regularly? Derek and Courtney are so blessed. It's very nice. Maybe someday you'll be able to afford a place like this. If you work hard, maybe become a general manager or something. I was the owner, but, maybe. That's the spirit. Dream big. She patted my cheek and wandered off to join the other mothers, all comparing notes on their successful children. I checked my phone. Text from Thomas, my general manager. Mr. Rivera, the Morrison party has lodged 3 complaints today. Guest services documented everything per protocol. I typed back, what kind of complaints? Room temperature, minibar pricing, spa availability. Standard grievances but increasingly aggressive tone. Staff reports Mr. Morrison has been demanding special treatment, citing the wedding package cost. Document everything. Maintain professional service standards. No exceptions. Understood. The evening continued. Dancing, more drinks, more celebration. Derek and Courtney in the center of everything, radiating happiness and success. I left around 10 p.m. Drove back to the Countryside Inn. Sat on the questionable bed and reviewed acquisition documents for a property in Savannah. Saturday morning, I returned to the Belmont estate for the wedding ceremony. 2 p.m. start time. I arrived at 1:45, parking in the overflow lot. The ceremony space looked perfect. White chairs arranged in precise rows on the south lawn. Flower arrangements that had cost $23,000. A string quartet playing Vivaldi. The ceremony arch draped in fabric and roses. $8,000 for that installation alone. I sat in the back row. The ceremony was beautiful. Courtney looked stunning. Derek cried during his vows. Richard walked his daughter down the aisle like he was delivering a queen. Everyone sobbed appropriately. After the ceremony, guests moved to the cocktail hour while the staff transformed the ceremony space into the reception area. I knew the logistics intimately, had reviewed the timeline with Thomas 3 times to ensure flawless execution. The cocktail hour featured past hors d'oeuvres, multiple bars, a raw seafood station and a jazz trio. Guests mingled on the terrace. I found a quiet spot near the fountain. Jason. Uncle Mark appeared. Hell of a wedding, huh? It's very nice. Derek really made something of himself. That VP salary, the house in Westchester, and now this wedding. Kid's got it figured out. He's done well. You're doing fine too, Mark added, the way you compliment a child's macaroni art. Hotels are important. Someone's gotta manage them. True. Maybe Derek can give you some career advice. Help you move up the ladder. Maybe. He wandered off. I checked my phone. Another text from Thomas. Additional complaints from Morrison party. They demanded late checkout without fees, complained about parking distance from building, requested comp spa services. All denied per standard policy. Mr. Morrison requested to speak with ownership. I smiled and replied, not yet. Maintain protocol. The reception began. Grand ballroom, capacity 240, renovated at a cost of $1.4 million. Crystal chandeliers I'd had specially restored. A dance floor that had required structural reinforcement. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the estate grounds. Dinner was exquisite. Filet mignon, Chilean sea base, vegetarian Wellington. Wine pairings that cost more per bottle than most people's weekly grocery budget. I sat at table 19 this time. Even farther back. Between distant relatives who spent most of dinner on their phones. The toasts began. Best man talked about Derek's ambition. Maid of honor talked about Courtney's grace. Richard gave an emotional speech about his daughter and his successful new son-in-law. Everyone applauded. Clinked glasses. Celebrated. I ate my $280 plated dinner and thought about Monday's conference call with potential investors. Around 8 p.m. I noticed a commotion at table 1. Derek was speaking animatedly to one of the servers. Mom had joined the conversation. Then Courtney's father. The server looked distressed and walked quickly toward the service corridor. I watched, waiting. 5 minutes later, Thomas appeared. My general manager. Impeccably professional in his suit. He approached table 1 with 2 security staff members. I couldn't hear the conversation from table 19, but I saw the body language. Derek gesturing. Thomas remaining calm. Richard pointing at something. Mom looking confused. Then Thomas gestured across the ballroom. Toward table 19. Toward me. Every head at table 1 turned. Thomas began walking through the reception hall. The security team followed. They were heading directly to my table. The band had stopped playing. Conversations died. 200 guests watched as the general manager crossed the room. Thomas stopped at my table. Mr. Rivera, I apologize for the interruption during the celebration. I stood slowly. What seems to be the problem, Thomas? The Morrison party has requested an immediate meeting with ownership regarding multiple service complaints and demands for special accommodations. I see. What specifically? Thomas consulted his tablet. Complaints about room temperature, minibar pricing, parking proximity, spa availability, checkout policies and resort fees. They're demanding full refunds on incidental charges, complimentary service upgrades and late checkout without fees. They've also expressed dissatisfaction with staff responses to their requests. Derek had reached us now. Jason, why is the manager talking to you? Mr. Morrison has questions about hotel policies, Thomas said smoothly. No, I have questions for the owner, Derek said. I've spent $127,000 on this wedding and your staff has been completely inflexible about simple requests. I want to speak with whoever owns this place. You are, Thomas said calmly. Silence. What? Derek said. You're speaking with the owner. Mr. Jason Rivera is the owner of the Belmont Estate Resort. You could have heard a champagne bubble pop. Derek stared at me. That's not funny. It's not a joke, I said quietly. I acquired the Belmont Estate 18 months ago. Thomas serves as general manager under my direction. Mom had arrived now. Jason, what is happening? I own the hotel, Mom. I have for a year and a half. Courtney appeared, still holding her bouquet. You own this place? Yes. Richard pushed through the growing crowd. This is the Belmont Estate. This property is worth. He couldn't finish. Approximately $14.7 million current valuation, I supplied. I paid $8.4 million at acquisition and invested $3.2 million in renovations. The ballroom had gone completely silent. 200 guests staring. Derek's face had gone from red to pale. You own a multi-million-dollar resort. This and 6 other properties. I run a hospitality management company. Riverside Hospitality Group. 7 properties across 4 states. 43 employees. Annual revenue around $31 million. But you. Mom couldn't form words. You stay at budget motels. You drive a regular car. You never said. You never asked, I corrected gently. You assumed I was a struggling hotel manager. You told me the countryside inn was more appropriate for my budget. I didn't correct you because it was easier than explaining. Thomas cleared his throat. Mr. Rivera, regarding the complaints? I looked at Derek. Let's address them. Thomas says you've demanded refunds on incidental charges. What charges specifically? Minibar, premium Wi-Fi, spa services, parking, Derek said weakly. All clearly disclosed in your booking contract. What else? Late checkout without fees. Standard policy is checkout by 11 a.m., late checkout by request with fees depending on occupancy. We're at 94% occupancy this weekend. Late checkout would prevent us from preparing rooms for incoming guests. We spent $127,000 on this wedding. Derek protested. You spent $127,000 on a comprehensive wedding package that included ceremony space, reception venue, catering, bar service, accommodations for the wedding party and coordination services. All of which have been provided exactly as contracted. Incidental charges are separate. That's standard hospitality industry practice. Courtney was crying now, her wedding makeup running. You're really going to charge your own brother extra fees? I'm going to enforce the same policies I enforce for every guest, I said calmly. That's how you run a successful property. Consistent standards. Richard looked like he might faint. You let us think you were nobody. I let you assume what you wanted to assume, I corrected. You asked if I worked at hotels. I do. I own them. You just didn't ask enough questions to learn that. Derek found his voice, though it shook. This whole time. 9 years. You've been building this and we had no idea. You weren't interested. Every time I tried to talk about my work, you changed the subject to your achievements. After a while I stopped trying. We would have listened if we'd known you were successful. Would you? Or would you have just treated me differently because of the money? Like you're all treating me right now. The crowd of guests had grown. Everyone watching this family drama unfold at what was supposed to be an elegant wedding. Thomas held up his tablet. Mr. Rivera, for the record, do you approve the requested accommodations? Late checkout, refunded charges, complimentary upgrades. I looked at my brother, at my parents, at the family that had spent 9 years dismissing everything I'd built. No, I said clearly. All charges stand as contracted. Standard checkout time applies. No exceptions. But we're family. Mom said desperately. Exactly, I said. Your family. You spent 9 years thinking I was a failure while I built a $31 million business. You put me in budget motels while you stayed in luxury hotels I own. You gave me advice about climbing the ladder while I owned the entire building. And you never once asked real questions about my life. Dad had tears in his eyes. We didn't know. You didn't care to know, I corrected. There's a difference. You were comfortable with your version of me, the struggling little brother who made Derek look better by comparison. Questioning that narrative would have been uncomfortable. Derek sat down heavily. Jesus, Jason. You're actually rich. I'm successful in my industry, I said. I built something meaningful. Whether that makes me rich is subjective. Your net worth, Richard said weakly. With 7 properties. Is private information, I said firmly. But since everyone's so interested, approximately $23 million, most of it tied up in property equity and business assets. The number seemed to echo through the silent ballroom. Courtney made a small sound like she'd been slapped. You're worth more than my parents. Again, most of it is illiquid. But yes, probably. Uncle Mark had pushed to the front of the crowd. All those times I gave you career advice. Told you to learn from Derek. I remember. Derek makes excellent money, I interrupted. His success is legitimate. He's a VP at a major firm. That's genuinely impressive. His career has nothing to do with mine. They're different paths. But you're a millionaire, Mark said, like testing the word. Yes. Thomas was still standing patiently. Mr. Rivera, shall I return to my duties? The kitchen needs final approval for dessert service timing. Yes, Thomas. Proceed as planned. And Thomas? Make sure Mr. Morrison's final bill is itemized completely. Every charge clearly documented. Of course, sir. Thomas departed with the security team. The crowd slowly dispersed, guests returning to their tables, whispering furiously. I remained standing at table 19. Derek hadn't moved. Just sitting there staring at nothing. Mom approached carefully like I might break. Jason, can we talk? Privately. There's nothing private to say. You know now what I do. What I've built. If you want a relationship going forward, it has to be based on reality. Not the comfortable fiction you preferred. We love you, she said, crying now. You love the version of me that didn't challenge Derek's position as the golden child. I'm not interested in being that person anymore. I picked up my phone and wallet. I'm going to head out. Please enjoy the rest of your reception. The dessert course is exceptional. I approved the menu personally. Where are you going? Mom asked. Probably back to the countryside inn. Maybe I'll upgrade to my actual suite here. Haven't decided. You have a suite here? Derek asked hollowly. Owner's suite. Penthouse level. 1,800 square feet, private terrace, full kitchen. I keep it available when I'm visiting properties. I started walking toward the exit. Jason. Derek called. I stopped, turned. He stood up, walked over slowly. I'm sorry. For all of it. For never seeing you. For never asking. For treating you like you were less. Thank you. Can we fix this? I considered it. Maybe. But Derek, I don't need your validation anymore. I spent 9 years building something extraordinary without your support. I did it anyway. If we rebuild a relationship, it has to be because we genuinely want to know each other. Not because you're impressed by my bank account. I want to know you, he said, and he sounded genuine. The real you. Not the version we invented. Then call me next week. Actually ask about my work. Listen to the answers. We'll see if we can build something real. I left the ballroom, walked through the lobby I'd designed, past the front desk where my staff maintained perfect professionalism, and out to my car. My phone buzzed. Text from Thomas. Your owner's suite is prepared if you'd like to stay, sir. Complimentary champagne and the good scotch in the bar. I smiled and typed back. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Please have housekeeping prepare the suite. I drove back to the countryside in one last time. Packed my bag, checked out, and drove back to the Belmont estate. The night manager checked me in personally. Welcome home, Mr. Rivera. Penthouse suite is ready. May I say, sir, what happened in the ballroom tonight? The staff are calling it legendary. Just setting some records straight. The whole team is proud of you. You built something incredible here. I took the private elevator to the penthouse level. The suite was perfect. Panoramic windows overlooking the estate grounds. Custom furniture, luxury finishes, every detail exactly as I'd specified during renovation. I poured myself 3 fingers of 30-year scotch and stepped onto the terrace. Below I could see lights from the ballroom. The reception continuing. My family celebrating Derek's wedding at the property I owned, finally understanding what I'd been building while they'd been busy dismissing me. My phone buzzed throughout the night. Messages flooding in. Derek, I really am sorry. Can we talk tomorrow? Mom, please don't hate us. Dad, we're so proud of you. We should have said that 9 years ago. Uncle Mark, I'm an idiot. Forgive me. I read them all. Didn't respond yet. Tomorrow would be soon enough. I stood on my terrace, looking at my property, thinking about the journey that brought me here. Employee number 1 at a Hampton Inn to owner of 7 luxury properties. $38,000 salary to $23 million net worth. And I'd done it in silence. Without validation. Without support. Without anyone believing in me except myself. That made it sweeter. The next morning I had breakfast in my suite. Thomas brought the newspaper and coffee service personally. The Morrison party checked out at 11 a.m. sharp, he reported. All charges paid in full. No additional complaints. Good. Your brother asked the front desk for your room number. We declined to provide it per your standing privacy instructions. Thank you, Thomas. Will you be staying longer, sir? I'll head back to Charleston this afternoon. Please prepare the standard ownership report, occupancy rates, guest satisfaction scores, revenue analysis. I'll review this week. Of course. And sir, if I may say, watching you own that moment last night was the most inspiring thing I've seen in 20 years of hospitality. I smiled. Just enforcing standards, Thomas. Same as always. I checked out at noon, drove back to Charleston, and returned to my regular life. Monday morning, I was in my office reviewing acquisition documents for the Savannah property. My phone rang. Derek. I considered not answering. Then picked up. Jason. Hey, Derek. Can I actually ask about your work? Like really ask? Not assume or dismiss or compare. Just learn about what you've built. I leaned back in my chair looking at my wall of property photos. 7 hotels, each one a story of transformation. Yeah, I said. I'd like that. We talked for an hour. He asked real questions. I gave real answers. It wasn't perfect. Years of dismissal don't heal in one conversation. But it was a start. And that was more than I'd expected. Because the truth was, I didn't need them to understand. I'd proven everything I needed to prove. Not to them. To myself. And that was worth more than any wedding at any luxury resort. Even one I owned.
The text from my sister Kate arrived while I was in the middle of a confidential board meeting. Emergency family dinner tonight. Dad's furious about your LinkedIn. Says you're throwing your life away. Fair warning. They've prepared PowerPoints. 7 p.m. sharp. I glanced around the sleek conference room on the 60th floor of my company's headquarters, where 12 of the most influential tech executives in the world sat discussing our latest acquisition. If only my family knew that while they were crafting PowerPoints about job searching, I was orchestrating a $3.8 billion merger. "Everything okay, Ms. Anderson?" asked Marcus, my CFO, noticing my momentary distraction. "Just family drama," I replied, tucking my phone away. Now, about the quantum computing division. 6 hours later, I pulled my deliberately modest Honda Civic into my parents' circular driveway, parking between Dad's Maserati and Mom's Mercedes. The house, a sprawling Georgian mansion in the most exclusive neighborhood in town, looked exactly as it had when I'd moved out 3 years ago to find myself, or as they saw it, throw away my Stanford MBA and promising consulting career. The housekeeper, Maria, opened the door before I could knock. "Miss Alexandra," she whispered. "They've been practicing their speeches all afternoon." I smoothed down my carefully chosen outfit, thrift store jeans, and a faded sweater that concealed its Brunello Cucinelli origins. The costume of a struggling entrepreneur, perfect for tonight's performance. The family was assembled in the formal dining room, Dad at the head of the table, his CEO posture in full effect. Mom to his right, a stack of papers before her. Kate and her husband Bradley on one side, my brother Peter and his wife Victoria on the other. The large TV on the wall was tuned to CNBC, Dad's constant companion. "Alexandra," Mom rose to kiss my cheek, her Cartier bracelets jingling. "You look comfortable." I took my assigned seat, the hot seat at the opposite end of the table from Dad. A projector screen had been set up behind him. This was going to be quite the production. "Let's get straight to the point," Dad began, his boardroom voice in full effect. "Your behavior has become concerning. This startup of yours, Quantum Solutions," I supplied helpfully, "has gone on long enough. 2 years of vague explanations about revolutionary technology and stealth mode development. Meanwhile, your peers are advancing in their careers." Kate jumped in right on cue. "Madison Thompson just made partner at McKinsey. And Christopher Lee is heading Goldman's Asia division," Peter added. Mom slid a folder across the table. "I've taken the liberty of compiling some opportunities. Harrison at Morgan Stanley specifically asked about you." I opened the folder, pretending to study the carefully curated job listings while actually checking the time on my watch. A prototype quantum-powered device worth more than this house. "The support stops now," Dad announced, clicking to his first PowerPoint slide. "No more rent assistance." "I pay my own rent," I interrupted, "in that tiny apartment in the Innovation District. On what income?" Victoria scoffed. "We all know startups don't pay founders in the early stages. If they only knew that I owned the entire Innovation District through a series of shell companies, or that my tiny apartment was actually a cover for my real residence, the top 3 floors of the city's most exclusive building. Your trust fund will be frozen, Dad continued, until you demonstrate financial responsibility by accepting a proper position. I bit back a smile. The trust fund he was threatening to freeze amounted to less than what my company earned in interest every hour. Alexandra, Mom leaned forward. We're worried about you. This isn't like you. Hiding your work, being secretive about your company. What exactly does Quantum Solutions even do? Before I could answer, the TV behind them caught my attention. The CNBC ticker changed, and a breaking news alert flashed across the screen. BUREKIAG. Wall Street Journal. TOREVAIDENTITY of Memo Mysterious QUANTUM SOLUTIONFOUNDER. My phone buzzed. Marcus texting. All systems go. Article dropping in 3, 2, 1. No more SUPP or Tanki until you get a real Joby, Dad announced firmly, just as Mom pushed the want ads closer to me. That's when every phone in the room lit up with the same news alert. The TV anchor's voice cut through the silence. Breaking news. The Wall Street Journal has just revealed the identity of Quantum Solutions founder, the secretive force behind what's being called the most revolutionary technology company since Apple. 28-year-old Alexandra Anderson. The room froze. 6 heads whipped toward the TV, where my professional headshot now filled the screen. Has built a quantum computing empire valued at $12.4 billion, making her the youngest self-made billionaire in history. Sources confirm major contracts with NASA, the Department of Defense, and leading tech giants. Mom's water glass slipped from her hand, shattering on the imported marble floor. Dad's PowerPoint clicker clattered onto the table. Kate's phone dropped into her soup. That's impossible, Peter stammered, frantically Googling on his phone. You work in a co-working space. You drive a Honda. I pulled out my actual phone, not the decoy I usually carry to family functions, as it began lighting up with messages from world leaders, tech CEOs, and journalists. Actually, I said, standing up, I own that co-working space, and the building it's in, and most of that neighborhood. The Honda is just practical. Why waste money on flashy cars when you can invest in quantum technology? 12 billion. Bradley whispered, his face pale. 0.4, I corrected. Though that valuation is from last week, it's likely higher now. Victoria, who had been furiously scrolling through news articles, looked up with shock. The Pentagon just confirmed a $5 billion contract. They're calling your quantum encryption the most significant breakthrough in national security history. Alexandra. Mom found her voice. Why didn't you tell us? I straightened my shabby sweater, which probably cost more than their monthly mortgage payment. You never asked. You were too busy telling me what I was doing wrong to notice what I was doing right. My phone buzzed again. The President's Chief of Staff requesting an urgent meeting about our latest defense capabilities. I need to take this, but before I go, I reached into my bag and pulled out 6 thick folders, dropping them on the table. These are non-disclosure agreements. If you want to know what Quantum Solutions actually does, you'll need to sign them. Standard procedure. NDAs? For family? Kate scoffed. Especially for family. I smiled. After all, Dad, isn't that what you always taught me about protecting valuable assets? The TV continued its coverage. revolutionary quantum computing breakthroughs, major implications for artificial intelligence, cryptography, and space exploration, the most successful stealth company in modern history. Oh, and Dad, I paused at the door, about freezing my trust fund. No need. I donated it to fund quantum research scholarships last year. All 12 million of it. I figured someone else could put it to better use. I left them there, surrounded by their PowerPoints and shattered assumptions, while their phones exploded with messages from friends and colleagues about their suddenly famous family member. The want ads lay forgotten on the table, next to Dad's now irrelevant presentation about responsible career choices. This was just the beginning. They had no idea what was coming next. The morning after the Wall Street Journal reveal was pure chaos. My real office, a 3-story penthouse command center with panoramic city views, buzzed with activity. Screens displayed real-time data from our quantum facilities worldwide, while my executive team managed the flood of incoming calls, partnership offers, and media requests. "The president wants a private briefing," Marcus reported, handing me my 4th espresso of the day. "Pentagon sending a delegation, and NASA's director is literally begging for an accelerated timeline on Project Helios." I nodded, scanning global market reactions on the central display. "And the family situation?" "Interesting developments there." He pulled up a holographic display. "One of our proprietary technologies. Your father's company, Anderson Global, has lost 12% of its market value since yesterday. Investors are questioning why they missed partnering with Quantum Solutions when they had the chance." That made me smile. 2 years ago, I'd presented Dad with a detailed proposal for modernizing Anderson Global's outdated infrastructure. He dismissed it as unproven technology and suggested I learn the basics of business first. My phone lit up with Kate's face, the 15th call since breakfast. "This time," I answered. "The country club is in absolute chaos," she blurted. "Mrs. Worthington, you remember, the one who told Mom you were wasting your potential at last year's charity gala? She's having a meltdown. Apparently, her husband's investment firm passed on Quantum Solutions' first funding round." "How unfortunate for them," I replied, watching our stock price climb another 3%. "And Mom, God, Mom is simultaneously thrilled and furious. She's already redecorated the family room to display every magazine with your face on it, but she's also crying about missing all the important moments." I glanced at the Time magazine cover proofs my PR team had just sent over. "The Quantum Queen: How Alexandra Anderson Revolutionized Technology." The photo shoot had been last month. I'd told my family I was at a job fair. "Speaking of important moments," I said, "you might want to warn Dad about tomorrow's Financial Times article." They did a deep dive into how Anderson Global rejected our partnership offer. The headline isn't flattering. Kate went quiet. "How bad?" "Legacy CEO's billion-dollar blunder. The partnership that could have saved Anderson Global." "Jesus, Alex, Dad's going toe. Learn a valuable lesson about underestimating people." "Yes, I expect he will." After hanging up, I turned to Marcus. "How's Operation Legacy progressing?" He grinned, pulling up encrypted files. "Right on schedule. Through our shell companies, we now control 28% of Anderson Global's shares. Another 15% is lined up for acquisition next week. Make it 20%. I stood straightening my actual wardrobe, a hand-tailored Armani suit that cost more than my fake apartment's annual rent. Time to accelerate the timeline. The next few hours were a blur of strategic moves. The White House briefing was scheduled. The NASA contracts were expanded. 3 more quantum computing breakthroughs were announced. Our stock jumped another 8%. Then came the call I'd been waiting for. Dad. Alexandra. His voice strained. The board is meeting tomorrow. Our major investors are concerned about our technological capabilities, about our future. How concerned? Enough to suggest new leadership might be needed. I let the silence stretch, remembering all the times he'd lectured me about real business leadership at family dinners. I may have a solution, I finally said. Quantum Solutions could consider a strategic investment under certain conditions. Conditions? Full management overhaul, complete technological integration, and a new board structure. More silence. Then, you planned this, didn't you? All of it? Dad, you taught me to think strategically, to identify weaknesses in the market, to seize opportunities. I watched our latest quantum processor test results stream across my screens. I just applied those lessons more effectively than you expected. The board meets at 10 a.m. I know. I'll be there. Oh, and Dad? Wear your best suit. CNBC will be covering it. After hanging up, I turned to find Marcus with fresh intelligence. Your mother's called every society columnist in town trying to explain why she never mentioned her daughter's little technology company before. Peter's wife is suddenly updating her LinkedIn to highlight her connection to you. And that cousin who mocked your hobby at Easter. He's sent 17 job applications to our HR department. I smiled, adjusting my quantum-powered watch, worth more than their combined annual incomes. Schedule a family dinner for next week. My treat. The Michelin-starred place they could never get into. No, the one I bought last month. And Marcus? Make sure the private dining room displays our latest holographic technology. It's time they understood exactly what they've been dismissing as my little startup. The sun was setting over the city as I reviewed the final details for tomorrow's board meeting. On my screens, quantum computations that would revolutionize everything from space travel to artificial intelligence processed in real time. The technology they called unrealistic was already changing the world. My phone buzzed with a message from our lunar facility. Project Helios was ahead of schedule. Another from our quantum encryption team, breakthrough in teleportation theory, and a third from our AI division. Consciousness transfer protocols were ready for testing. Marcus, I called as he headed out. One more thing. That list of companies that rejected our partnership offers over the past 2 years. Yes? Buy them. All of them. He raised an eyebrow. That's 27 companies across 6 continents. 28 actually. Anderson Global just made the list. I turned back to the city view, watching lights flicker on across the empire I'd built while they thought I was finding myself. It's time to show them what real business leadership looks like. The quantum processors hummed softly in the background, calculating futures they couldn't begin to imagine. Tomorrow's board meeting wouldn't just change Anderson Global, it would reshape the entire industry. And I was just getting started. The morning of the Anderson Global board meeting arrived with perfect dramatic timing. Rain lashed against the windows of my quantum-powered Maybach as we pulled up to the corporate headquarters, the same building where 2 years ago, security had directed me to visitor parking for my failed partnership pitch. Ms. Anderson, the guard stammered now, practically tripping over himself to open my door. We've been expecting you. Have you? I handed him a tablet. Here's your new security protocols. My quantum AI detected 17 vulnerabilities in your current system. Fix them. The lobby was chaos. CNBC had set up multiple camera positions. Bloomberg reporters huddled near the elevators. The stock ticker above reception showed Anderson Global shares continuing their downward spiral while Quantum Solutions soared. My heels clicked against marble as I crossed to the executive elevator. The same one Dad had once told me was for serious business leaders only. The same elevator where he'd suggested I learn the basics before trying to revolutionize anything. Kate intercepted me at the 50th floor. Her channel suit couldn't hide her anxiety. "Alex, please, can we talk? The family's in crisis. Mom's been crying all night, and Dad is about to learn the difference between legacy and innovation." I checked my quantum watch. Worth more than her house. "The board meets in 15 minutes. I suggest you prepare yourself." Prepare? For what? The future. The executive floor hummed with nervous energy. Board members huddled in corners, whispering urgently. Dad's longtime allies avoided eye contact. Peter stood by the coffee machine, frantically refreshing stock quotes on his phone. Mom appeared, perfect as always except for the worry lines around her eyes. "Darling, whatever you're planning is already done." I nodded to Marcus, who'd materialized with our legal team. The paperwork was filed at dawn. The boardroom fell silent as I entered. 20 pairs of eyes watched me take my seat, not in the visitor's chair where I'd pitched my unrealistic ideas 2 years ago, but at the head of the table, Dad's chair. "This meeting will come to order," the board chairman announced, voice trembling slightly. "We're here to discuss the survival of Anderson Global," I interrupted, opening my quantum laptop. The room's screens came alive with my presentation. Though survival might be optimistic at this point, I stood, commanding the room just as Dad had taught me, though never expecting I'd use these lessons against him. In the past week, Anderson Global's stock has dropped 37%. Market confidence is non-existent. Your technology is obsolete, your market share is evaporating, and your competitors are evolving while you stagnate. Dad's face darkened. "Now see here. Your attempts at digital transformation have failed. Your AI initiatives are years behind schedule. And your cybersecurity." I clicked to the next slide, showing a real-time visualization of their vulnerabilities. "Well, let's just say it's fortunate that Quantum Solutions discovered these weaknesses before someone less friendly did." The board members shifted uncomfortably. They'd seen the numbers. They knew the truth. "However," I continued, "there is a solution. Quantum Solutions is prepared to offer a complete technological overhaul. Our quantum computing platforms, our AI systems, our revolutionary encryption technology, all of it. We'll modernize every aspect of Anderson Global's operations." Hope flickered across several faces. Then I delivered the knockout blow. As of this morning, Quantum Solutions owns 53% of Anderson Global's shares. This isn't an offer, it's a notification. The merger paperwork has been filed. The press release goes out in 3 minutes. The room exploded. Dad slumped in his chair. Mom gasped. Peter dropped his phone. "You can't do this." One board member shouted. "This is business," I corrected. "Something this family taught me very well. The shareholders will be pleased. Our stock is up 15% in pre-market trading just on merger rumors." I clicked to the final slide. The restructuring begins immediately. New board, new management, new direction. I turned to my father. "You always said Anderson Global would be my inheritance someday." I just decided not to wait. The next hour was a blur of signatures, legal documents, and shell-shocked expressions. By noon, I was CEO of both Quantum Solutions and Anderson Global. The empire I'd built had just absorbed the one that had rejected me. As the board members filed out, I finally turned to my family. Now about dinner tonight. Dinner? Kate looked dazed. How can you think about dinner? Because I own the restaurant, and the building it's in, and most of this block, actually. I smiled. I thought it would be a good place to discuss the future of our family enterprises. All of them. Mom stepped forward. Alexandra, why didn't you tell us? All this secrecy, this elaborate plan. Would you have listened? 2 years ago, I tried to tell you about quantum computing's potential, about the future of technology. You all laughed, called it my hobby. Well, my little hobby just reshaped the entire industry. I gathered my things, ready to head to my first press conference as CEO of the merged companies. Dinner's at 8. Don't be late. And dress appropriately. Forbes wants family photos for next month's cover story. As I walked out, Dad called after me. When did you become so ruthless? I turned back one last time. I learned from the best, Dad. You taught me that business is business. I just played the game better than you expected. The elevator doors closed on their stunned faces. My phone buzzed. Both companies' stocks were soaring. Marcus appeared with my schedule. The family dinner tonight, he said. Should I arrange security? No need, I smiled. Just make sure the photographers get my good side. After all, this is what a modern empire looks like. The sun was setting over the city as my car pulled away from Anderson Tower, my tower now. In the rearview mirror, I could see my family standing at the window, watching me leave. But this time, I wasn't driving away in a borrowed Honda. This time, I was driving toward the future I'd built in a car that cost more than their annual bonuses combined. Sometimes the best revenge isn't just success. It's succeeding so spectacularly that those who doubted you have no choice but to acknowledge your victory. And as for that career intervention they'd planned, well, some interventions have unexpected outcomes.